Single dad rescues a bride in a wheelchair, left freezing in the snow. He never knew she was the billionaire who once ruined his life. Snow fell like shards of glass under the silver light of a fading winter sun. The mountain road was empty, silent except for the wind that howled through the pines. And then, out of that silence, a faint sound. A woman's trembling voice calling for help. Liam turned his old pickup toward the voice, headlights cutting through the white fog. What he saw made his heart stop. A wedding dress, torn and soaked in snow. A wheelchair half buried, and a woman slumped over it, shivering violently, her lips blue. "Hey, stay with me," Liam shouted, rushing toward her. He wrapped his jacket around her frail body and felt the shock of ice against her skin. She looked up weakly, her voice breaking. "Please, don't let me die." He lifted her, carefully like something fragile, and carried her into his truck. Her hands were trembling so badly, she could barely grasp the blanket he threw over her. He turned the heater full blast, his breath visible in the freezing air. "You'll be okay, ma'am. Just hold on," he said, his deep voice steady despite the fear clawing inside him. She didn't reply, just stared ahead, eyes filled with something beyond pain. Something like shame. As the truck rumbled down the snow-covered road, Liam stole a glance at her through the mirror. Her face, though pale and exhausted, was hauntingly familiar. But from where? He shook the thought away. Now wasn't the time. He had to get her warm, alive, safe. When they finally reached his small wooden cabin on the edge of the forest, Liam carried her inside and laid her on the old sofa near the fire. His 7-year-old daughter, Ella, peeked from the hallway, eyes wide. "Daddy, who is she?" "I don't know, sweetheart," Liam whispered, brushing snow off the woman's veil. "But she needs our help." As the flames began to thaw the chill in the air, the woman's eyes fluttered open. Her voice was faint but clear enough to freeze Liam's heart. "I didn't mean for any of this to happen," she whispered. "Not again." He frowned. "What do you mean? Again?" But she had already passed out. He sat beside her, watching the snow drift outside, a storm still raging beyond the glass. He didn't know that the stranger he had just rescued, the woman in the wheelchair dressed like a bride, was the same billionaire whose company had destroyed his life years ago. And soon, both their worlds were about to collide in ways neither could ever imagine. The storm didn't stop that night. Snow hammered against the windows, but inside the cabin, the fire glowed warm and soft. The woman, still in her soaked wedding dress, slept on the couch, her breathing uneven. Liam sat at the table, hands clasped, staring into the flames. His mind ran in circles. Who was she? Why was she in a wedding gown alone on a deserted road? And why did her face feel like a shadow from his past? Ella brought him a cup of warm milk, her little hands shaking slightly. "Daddy, is she going?" "Did I?" Liam smiled faintly, brushing a lock of hair from her face. "No, sweetheart, not while I'm here." The next morning, the storm eased. Liam cooked oatmeal and checked on the woman. She stirred, blinking at the unfamiliar ceiling, then tried to move, but her legs wouldn't respond. Panic flashed in her eyes. "Easy," Liam said quickly. "You're safe here. You were freezing out there. I found you on the mountain road." She stared at him, her lips trembling. "You found me?" He nodded. "Name's Liam. This is my daughter, Ella." The woman hesitated. "I'm Isabel." The name hit him like a distant echo. Isabel. It tugged at something deep in his memory. But the image wouldn't come. "Do you remember what happened?" he asked gently. She swallowed hard, looking down at her ringless hand. "I was supposed to get married today," her voice cracked. "But the man I trusted left me there, in the snow. He said he couldn't live with my condition anymore." Liam's jaw tightened. He didn't know this woman's story yet, but he knew betrayal when he saw it. He knelt beside her. "Then he's not worth your tears." She gave a small, broken laugh. "You don't understand. I lost everything for him. My family, my company, my pride." Company. The word made Liam's pulse quicken. What kind of company? He asked, almost too quickly. Her gaze flickered to him. Everstone Holdings. For a moment, time stopped. Liam froze, the sound of her words echoing in his head like a cruel joke. Everstone Holdings, the corporation that had bought out his construction business years ago, leaving him bankrupt and desperate. He had lost his home. His wife had left him. Everything had fallen apart after that deal, and the woman lying helpless on his couch was the CEO who had signed the papers. He stood slowly, his heart pounding. "You should rest," he said stiffly, forcing his voice to stay calm. Isabel watched him, confused by the sudden change in his tone. "Did I say something wrong?" He didn't answer. He turned to the window, hands clenched at his sides, staring into the fading storm. For years he had dreamed of meeting the person who ruined his life, never imagining she'd end up here, in his home, fragile and broken. But looking at her now, he didn't feel anger, just confusion, and a strange, painful pity. Outside, the snow began to melt, but inside, 2 lives frozen by the past were only beginning to thaw. That night, silence hung heavy in the cabin. The fire cracked softly, and Isabel's quiet breathing filled the room. Liam sat awake in the armchair, staring at the snow outside but seeing only memories. The foreclosure notice, the empty crib after his wife left, the phone calls that never came. All because of her company. He should have felt hatred. But every time he looked at her pale face trembling in sleep, something inside him softened. She looked nothing like the powerful CEO he'd seen in newspaper photos years ago. She looked human. Broken. In the morning, she tried to sit up, her hands shaking. Liam stepped forward instinctively to help, but she flinched. "You're angry with me," she whispered. He froze. "What makes you think that?" "The way you look at me. I've seen that look before. It's the look people give when they've lost something because of me." Liam clenched his jaw. There was no point in lying. "You're right. I did lose something. Everything, actually." She turned away, tears pooling in her eyes. "Then you should have left me out there. I wouldn't have blamed you." Her words hit him harder than he expected. He knelt beside her, his voice low. "I don't leave people to die, no matter who they are." She looked at him, startled by the quiet conviction in his voice. "Why?" "Because my daughter's watching. And I want her to grow up knowing kindness doesn't depend on revenge." For the first time, Isabel smiled faintly, though it hurt. "You're a good man, Liam." He didn't reply. The truth was, he didn't feel good. He felt torn, between the man he wanted to be and the man his pain had made him. Over the next few days, as the snow began to clear, Isabel grew stronger. She helped Ella with her drawings, listened to her stories, even taught her to bake cookies with one hand while holding onto her wheelchair with the other. Ella adored her. One afternoon, while they laughed together, Liam stood by the doorway, watching. For the first time in years, his home felt alive again. But that fragile warmth shattered when a black SUV appeared on the mountain road. 2 men in suits stepped out, calling her name. Isabel froze. "No, not them." Liam frowned. "Who are they?" "People from my father's company," she said, her voice trembling. "They'll take me back and destroy everything I've rebuilt here." "Why would they do that?" he asked, confused. "Because I was never supposed to marry for love," she said bitterly. "It was a business deal. When I called it off, I cost them billions. Now they'll make sure I disappear quietly." Before Liam could respond, Ella peeked out and clutched his leg. "Daddy, are they bad men?" He looked down at her frightened face, then at Isabel. Weak, scared, but defiant. He stepped forward, his voice steady. "Stay behind me." As the men approached the door, Liam's jaw tightened. For years, life had beaten him down, taken everything. But not this time. Not this woman. Not his peace, not his daughter's safety. He opened the door and faced them head on. "She's not going anywhere tonight," the taller man sneered. "You don't understand who you're protecting." Liam's eyes hardened. "I understand enough." In that moment, for the first time in years, Liam felt like the man he once was, a protector, not a victim. And Isabel, watching from behind him, realized something she'd never known before. The man she had ruined was now the only one willing to stand between her and the darkness she'd created. The tension in the cabin was sharp as ice. The two men outside shifted uneasily, realizing Liam wasn't going to move aside. Snowflakes drifted between them like falling ash. "Step away, sir," one of them said, voice clipped and cold. "Miss Everstone belongs to us." Her father's orders. Liam's eyes narrowed. "She's not property, and she's not leaving this house until she decides to." The man smirked. "You really want to make an enemy of the Everstones? You'll regret this." Liam didn't flinch. "Already did. Years ago." For a long, tense moment, the men exchanged glances, then turned and left, though their glares promised this wasn't over. The SUV disappeared into the swirling white. When Liam turned back inside, Isabel was trembling. "You shouldn't have done that," she said. "They'll come back. My father. He never forgives betrayal." Liam stepped closer, his tone calm but firm. "Then let him come. I've faced worse storms." Her eyes filled with tears. "Why are you doing this for me?" "After what I did to you?" He looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the ruthless CEO from the past, but a woman stripped of everything except regret. "Because I see someone who's already punished herself enough." That night they talked for hours by the fire. She told him how her father had forced her to take control of the company young, how every deal she'd signed came with invisible chains. She hadn't known the human faces behind the numbers. Families, dreams, people like him. Liam listened silently, anger slowly dissolving into something else, understanding. "I thought power would make me free," she whispered. "But it only made me lonely," he nodded. "Freedom's not about what you have. It's about who you are when everything's gone." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "And who are you, Liam?" He smiled sadly. "Just a man trying to raise his daughter right." The quiet between them grew warm, almost fragile. She looked at him, her heart stirring in a way it hadn't in years. And for a brief moment she forgot the pain, the betrayal, the wheelchair. She felt human again. But the peace didn't last. 2 nights later, the sound of engines echoed through the valley. Floodlights pierced the darkness outside. The SUV was back, this time with 3 more. Liam stood at the window, his pulse steady. "They found us." Isabel gripped the armrest of her wheelchair. "You should take Ella and go, please." He shook his head. "No one runs from their past forever. Not you, not me." She swallowed hard, fear flickering in her eyes. "Then at least promise me this: if they take me, protect your daughter. Don't risk everything for me." He looked at her, and in that moment she saw it. The same quiet strength that had carried him through years of loss. "You already changed everything, Isabel," he said softly. "You made me remember who I was." When the door burst open and the men stormed in, Liam stood his ground. The confrontation was short but fierce. Raised voices, the shattering of glass, the cry of the storm outside. By the time it ended, Isabel was gone, dragged into the snow, her wheelchair's tracks fading into the blizzard. Liam fell to his knees, clutching the wedding veil she had left behind, his breath ragged. "Daddy," Ella whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Is she gone forever?" He looked toward the storm and shook his head. "No, sweetheart. Some people are too strong to disappear." And though he didn't know how, Liam promised himself he would find her, no matter what it took. Days turned into weeks. The snow melted, leaving behind muddy roads and bare trees. But inside Liam's heart, winter refused to end. Every night he'd sit by the fire, staring at the empty chair where Isabel once smiled at Ella's drawings. He'd gone to the police, but they couldn't help. Everstone Holdings was too powerful. They called it a family matter. He called it theft. Ella missed her too. She'd whisper before bed, "Daddy, do you think Miss Isabel is safe?" And every time he'd answer softly, "I hope so, sweetheart. I really hope so." Then one morning a letter arrived. No sender name, just Liam's written in neat, careful script. Inside was a single key, a short note and a check. More zeros than he'd ever seen in his life. "For what I took, and what you gave back. Come to Everstone Manor. Isabel." He stood for a long moment, the letter trembling in his hands. He didn't want her money, but her words. They sounded like a plea. So he went. The mansion sat on a hill beyond the city, vast and cold as the life she'd once lived. When the gates opened, a caretaker led him through silent halls until he reached a sunlit garden. There she was, Isabel, wrapped in a cream shawl, sitting beneath a cherry tree that had just begun to bloom. Her wheelchair gleamed in the sunlight, but she looked peaceful, softer. "Freer, I didn't think you'd come," she said quietly as he approached. "I almost didn't," he admitted. "But I had to see you. Ella misses you." That made her smile, though tears filled her eyes. "I miss her too. Both of you." He looked around. "Why did you send for me?" She took a deep breath. "Because I wanted you to see that I'm not running anymore. I faced my father. I sold my shares, and I'm using the money to rebuild the businesses we destroyed, including yours." Liam stared at her, speechless. "I can't undo the past," she continued, her voice trembling. "But I can make something better from it. You taught me that kindness can grow even in the coldest places." He stepped closer, the spring breeze rustling through the trees. "You didn't owe me anything, Isabel." She looked up at him with quiet strength. "Maybe not. But I owe myself a chance to be the kind of person you believed I could be." For a moment, neither spoke. The world felt still, like the calm after a long, unforgiving storm. Then she reached out her hand. "Liam, would you stay? Help me build something real this time. Not from power, but from hope." He hesitated only a second before taking her hand. "Yeah, I think we both deserve that." A small smile broke through her tears. "You really do forgive me, don't you?" Liam's gaze softened. "I already did. The night I pulled you out of the snow. Above them, the cherry blossoms swayed, scattering petals like snowflakes reborn as spring. In that moment, two broken souls, one bound by guilt, the other by loss, finally found peace in each other's warmth, and as the sun dipped behind the hills, Ella's laughter echoed through the garden where new beginnings took root. Because sometimes the people who ruin your life are the same ones fate sends back to help you rebuild it.